Hi folks, one of the questions we got was how to use that import-export tool that's in the gradebook. So I'm going to go into grades and check that out. You'll notice that my default is still in the manage grades. I want to be in the enter grades area. So if your default is to automatically go to that enter grades area, that'll save you a step here. But if you're like me and still in that manage grades default, gotta click over. And I want you to notice that there's a student here. I only have one student loaded. These are grades that I put in. This is a little bit of make-believe on my part. The student doesn't have access to this course. This isn't their real grades. These are things that I entered for the purposes of this recording. But you'll see that there are grades entered. So this is an attempt to pretend that the student has already been in taking things. Now I'm going to export this. When I go to export, there's a lot of options. If you're just looking for some data gathering and you don't plan on importing, then you can make some changes to narrow down what it is that you want to look at. For example, you might not need everything through all the units. But if you're planning on importing, just leave everything as default. That way it'll import back in correctly. And when you export, make sure that you do that as a CSV. So we should get this pop-up here. It'll take a little while and then it'll tell us, yep, we're ready to download. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to take a look at my export. I'm going to shrink it down just a bit so it fits inside my screen capture here. And so this is what it looks like after we export it. So you can see those grades that I made up are in there as if the student really did take it. And there's even some point totals here at the end. First thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that I absolutely save a copy of this exactly as it is with no changes made. The reason for this is because once you start going in and making changes, if you mess up some formatting, or you change a student's grade that shouldn't have been changed, or something else happens that this file gets messed up, you need to have that original, because there isn't going to be a backup copy of these students' grades after you import. And I'm going to date this. That way I know exactly when these grades were grabbed. But that's just for my knowledge. Whatever it is that you want to label this thing as, just make sure you definitely have an original copy. Oh, and of course, make sure you don't put in those slashes. Gotta make sure you have a valid file name. There we go. So my laptop always tells me that the CSV is going to lose some information if I save it this way. But the only information grabbed was grabbed as a CSV. It should be okay, especially since I need to have it in CSV to import. So let's make some changes to the student's grade. First, I want to make sure that I give them zeros for things that they didn't do. Then, let's say that there's some extra credit somewhere that didn't get accounted for, and that this mid-unit test should be a 32, not a 30. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this. And I'm going to save this as something different. I don't want to overwrite those original grades. I want to make sure that I have a copy somewhere of what I exported. That way if anything goes wrong, I have an original I can put right back and fix whatever it is that I broke. And before I upload this, I just want to check and make sure, hey, what happens if a student gets in there and takes a quiz while I'm making these changes. So I'm going to give the student another grade that I don't know about. So in this hypothetical situation, the student went in and took the 1.10 quiz while I was working on things. So let's take a look. We have these changes made. Notice that 1.10 quiz is still blank because I don't know that the student took that yet. Can I have 100 students in this course? I can't take the time to check them all. Let's save those changes. And let's import and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and browse, find it on my desktop. And oh, helps if you can keep track. There it is. So there's the original, so I can put back everything just the way it was. Or I can do the changed grades. So this is the changes I've made. Maybe I've put in USA test prep things, maybe I've entered zeros for the day. Whatever it is, that's the one that I'm uploading. And this item creation, I don't want this to happen. If I create a new item every time there's something that's unrecognized, then any changes that I accidentally make are going to clutter up my gradebook really fast. So I highly recommend not messing with this. If you want to create an item in your gradebook, use those other methods that we showed. Otherwise, this is an easy way to accidentally create things that you don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. And it's telling me that there were no errors found. That's great news. Definitely keep an eye on this, because if it finds errors when you import back in, that means that you are getting different information put into the gradebook than what you want. And you're going to need to go in and find what that error is, make those changes, make sure that you get just what you want back in. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. And you can see it tells me what changes were made. This went from being blank out of 5 to 0 out of 5. These didn't change. This went from being blank out of 5 to 0 out of 5. This went from being a 30 out of 32 to a 32 out of 32. And if we scroll over, remember I made it so that this student took a quiz while I was working on things. They got a 4 out of 5 and I didn't realize that. Notice that this was not changed to a blank, so that student gets to maintain that grade. So I'm going to go ahead and import this. And you can see this student now has grades here. Very exciting for me.